Well, I have the great joy now of, since we met, being able to call Lily Jo a friend. But for everybody else here who doesn't know you, can you tell us a little bit about who Lily Jo is for the outside world?
Yeah, so thanks for having me tonight. My name's Lily Jo. As Mike said, I'm a singer and a songwriter from Manchester, and I'm really passionate about mental health and about good mental health. And so really excited to be launching my book next year called Talking to Children About Mental Health. And I guess I could start a little bit talking about my journey and what brought me to this place of being passionate. So I grew up in a Christian home. Parents were together, Jamaican father, English mother, very involved in church culture, so very much, church every Sunday and midweek meetings. And as I grew up, I sang in church and was part of the Sunday school team, helping the children there, and just had that kind of foundation and anchor of God being the centre of our lives growing up. And early 20s, I had a sort of family trauma that led me to a place where I started to struggle massively with my mental health. And now looking back, would probably have diagnosed myself with post-traumatic stress disorder. I didn't have that diagnosis officially, but as a practicing counsellor now, that's what I think I had. And somebody in church suggested going to counselling, talking about how I was feeling, overcoming some of the symptoms of grief and anxiety and depression that I was feeling. And so successfully did 6 sessions and felt a real shift in me, and that really helped to get me back on my feet. And it was at that point that I thought, actually, it would be really good, and I would find it really exciting to go on a journey of becoming a counsellor myself. So I went on the journey, 4-year journey of training to become a counsellor and working in the NHS as a counsellor. Felt really privileged to have been given an amazing opportunity to work in a doctor's surgery, a GP practice for 5 years, and seeing adults who were struggling on a day-to-day basis with depression, anxiety, eating disorders, childhood trauma, grief and loss. So yeah, found my own healing and then was passionate about helping others, basically. And that's been my story so far. Okay, I'll go on a little further. So after 5 years of being in the NHS, I decided that I'd neglected my love of music and had trained at 16 to 18 at college in performing arts, so had done music, dance, acting, and just hadn't had the courage or the bravery to step into that role as a singer. Didn't really feel like I had the confidence to do that. And after 5 years in the NHS and after having my second child, I remember being on my sofa, holding my daughter in my arms and just thinking, I've got to have a go at this. Like, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. I'm never going to sing. I've got to have a go. My counselling career was going really well. I was really passionate. I was helping lots of people, but I wasn't quite doing that music thing. So began to explore the idea of a music career, and because of the circles I was moving in, I got the opportunity of being signed to a record label within the sort of Christian world, and did my first show at Big Church Day Out, where some of you may have been before, and talked from the stage about mental health, talked from the stage about a song that I'd written called Bring Me Back to Life, which is all about how God can restore you back to innocence, no matter what you've been through, no matter what you've experienced, that I believe God can restore you back to innocence. And so afterwards, just had this huge queue of people that wanted to talk to me in the merch queue and wanted to tell me their mental health story. So I had people pulling up their sleeves, showing me their scars, and telling me of abuse they'd had in childhood. And I was like, oh my goodness, I did not expect that in the merchandise queue of a gig, I would have these experiences. And that's where I had the idea to create an online mental health resource whereby I could connect my music with my mental health knowledge as a counsellor. So that idea for the Lily Jo project came from that moment, and from that point on 6 years ago, sort of I've been creating this online resource. On there you'll find tools, tips, resources to help your mental health. And then I got asked to go into a school, so I was like, okay. So I started to go into schools, talking to young people about mental health, using my music as a way to kind of, as a platform to talk about these really serious things. So it's kind of bringing fun and engagement to a topic that can be really quite deep and scary for people. And so that's been really successful. And throughout the COVID pandemic, I was able to create an online school curriculum so schools could access all my resources online through Zoom, through a difficult time, and that's where the book was born. It was kind of a way of being able to go, okay, what do teachers need? What do parents need right now? What do grandparents need? What do youth workers need? Let's get all that knowledge that's in there. Let's do some extra research, and let's pop it all in a book. So
we can see that the book's not actually out until January next year, but we have just got a cover. So we are now at the point of pre-orders and things. So it's very exciting. So tell us a little bit more about what people can expect to read in the book.
Yeah. So in the book, I talk about Generation AO. So this next generation, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they are always on. AO, always on. They're always connected to their phones. Obviously, we've had this big digital revolution that we're all catching up with as adults, but they've lived with this their whole lives. So my son was born in 2007, which is the year of the iPhone. So he's only ever known, this digital world. So we talk about that and how that impacts on young people, how actually there's a term called phoneliness, which is where actually young people are obviously connected, they have this hyper-connectivity, but they're also very lonely. So we talk a bit about that, talk about anxiety gone viral, so that's all about cancel culture and how, anything that young people do is recorded and filmed. Luckily, we didn't have that pressure. So, that is something that kids are really nervous about, that if they do something wrong, they're going to get cancelled. So we talk a little bit about that in the book. Also, post-pandemic stress disorder, we look at that as a thing. So how are our young people doing post-pandemic? So, for example, my son, he started high school in 2019. September 2019. He did 6 months of high school, year 7, really kind of prominent change time for him, and then, was locked down. So really the last year, 2021 to 22, was his first year of high school, year 9. So he's missed all of that time, which, as parents in the room, you'll all identify with. My daughter hasn't done a full year in school since year 1. She's now in year 5. It's kind of like massive for these young people that they've had all this time outside of education. So looking at post-pandemic stress disorder, which is a new thing. Also looking at bodies made digital, so self-esteem and self-harm. So I explore that in the book as well. And why people self-harm and what that means. Is it just attention seeking, or is there more to it? So that's all in there. Depression in a dying world. So we'll talk about suicide and climate anxiety. Huge things that our young people are facing, as well as grief and the impact of mental health on the LGBTQ community as well. So lots in there. It's been really interesting to research and to find out more about all of these things as a counsellor who is, a mental health practitioner, but also as a parent myself, and how do you navigate all of these problems that our young people are facing. So it's been really interesting.
Amazing. We are very, very excited for the book coming out. Thinking about some of the things that you've talked about there, words obviously have been really important, whether they're digital or whether they're spoken to us. Mm-hmm. What are some of the words that you've had spoken to you, and what's been the impact of some of those for your life?
Yeah, so I've had some really positive words spoken over my life, but I've also had some really negative words. And I think I'm fortunate in that, and I talk about this in the book as well, that my mum was a real steady rock for me, and no matter what I was going through perhaps at school, she would always be quite affirming and made me feel like it was going to be okay. And I think that really helped to develop my resilience. But I do remember being told when I was 16, a really kind of crossroads moment in my life, that I would never make it as a singer, that I was no Aretha Franklin, and that, you know, I wasn't good enough. And I guess that did impact me to a point where I went on a very different journey, which I don't regret, because actually I believe that all things work together for good. I went on to that kind of counselling path, and now I am where I am in that sense. But, you know, it wasn't easy for me to really believe in my voice and believe in myself, because somebody told me, you're no Aretha Franklin. It's only when I realised that it's okay to not be Aretha Franklin, it's okay to just be me, to be Lily Joe, and to use my voice, that I could still help people. And for me, it's about helping just that one person in the room that perhaps needs to hear the words that I'm singing on that day. And I don't profess to have the best voice in the world, but it's my voice. And I think it's coming to terms with, you know, whatever it is that you have, to use that for good. And for me, I believe that this is my God-given purpose, to inspire, to ignite, to promote freedom in myself first, but also in others and the people that I meet with. So whether that's friends, whether that's family, whether that's a whole bunch of children in school, that's what I believe that I'm called to do. So yes, negative words, that was a big one for me, being told I wasn't good enough, but doing the work around that and really understanding, well, who does God say I am? You know, I am his child, and actually he's given me the voice he's given me. So, you know, use that to the best of my ability.
So are those the words that God's speaking to you at the moment? Are those the words that you feel God is using to define you right now?
Definitely, yeah. And it's a journey, isn't it? And it's a confidence thing as well. It's like, yeah, yeah, I feel like I'm always growing, and I think that's a good place to be. Always growing, always changing, always learning. Definitely don't feel like I'm finished by any stretch of the imagination, but just being open and being teachable. And yeah, that's where I feel like I'm at right now.
So on that journey, you know, you've obviously talked about the mental health issues there, but you've touched a little bit on the spiritual as well. Kind of, how do those things come together for you?
Yeah, so I believe we all have, and this is what I teach in schools, we all have physical health. You know, how good is your physical health between 0 and 10 right now? We all have our spiritual health. How good is your spiritual health between 0 and 10 right now? 10 being good, 0 being not so good. And then we have our mental health. How good is your mental health right now? 0 being not so good, 10 being brilliant. And I think where we've sometimes gone wrong in our language is that mental health is a negative thing, whereas mental health is health in general. So, you know, we all have mental health. It's just that sometimes we can really struggle with our mental health, and sometimes our mental health can be absolutely brilliant. So I believe our mental health, our physical health, and our spiritual health are inextricably linked. You know, they're all kind of working together. And so, yeah, I guess right now I believe that I'm in a good place, but who knows, tomorrow I might not be. I might be thinking, why did I say that last night? Or should have said that differently, or, you know, kicking myself in some ways, because I'm not perfect. You know, none of us are we? We're all on this journey. But yeah.
So when it comes to nourishing yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually, what's going on for you right now?
Yeah, so I've really been on a journey of understanding self-care and looking after myself in a way that means I can help others better. So I have, obviously, along the journey of running my own organisation, fighting for funding, coming up against all kinds of issues, I have had moments where I felt completely burnt out and felt like, this is too hard. Can I just go stack shelves in Asda? That would be much easier. And had to keep on coming back to the fact that this is what I believe God's calling me to do. So get up and do it. So I've had to learn to really fit my own oxygen mask, like they talk about on an aeroplane. You know, if the pressure in the cabin drops on this flight, the oxygen mask will come down. Fit your own oxygen mask first before helping the child that's sat next to you, or before helping the elderly person next to you, or the person that might need your assistance. Fit the mask first. So that can sound selfish, but if I don't fit my mask first, I'm going to be passed out, and how can I help my child with his or hers? So that's been a real journey for me, is nourishing myself, whether that is spiritually, whether that is physically through exercise or eating well, those little things, those fundamentals of looking after our bodies. I've had to do that in order to be able to be the best me that I can possibly be, and show up to the kids in school, and show up for my family, and show up for my friends and my husband. So I believe that it's about looking after me first, really understanding who I am and how I can help myself, then I can help everyone around me. But I've learnt that the hard way. So again, I'm not perfect, and I'm always trying to be that kind of best version of me that I can be.
Can I just ask you one completely, we didn't plan this, sorry, so she doesn't know I'm going to ask this, but just thinking about kind of what you said there, and the relationship between parents and children. When you first started thinking about the book, why did you feel it was so important to have the conversation rather than just allow people like you who know what you're doing to go into schools and do it? Why was it so important for parents to have that skill set to do it themselves?
I think we're all specialists in our own way, right? And we all, we might go to work and do a really good job, and come home to our families and feel like we don't know how to help our children in the best way possible. And I feel like I've had a bit of a head start in that because of my training, because of the things I've learned. So I wanted to be able to share that so that people can nurture and nourish their children in the very best way possible, using understanding language with their children rather than like lacking language, being able to try out some tools and things that they might not have known because they haven't trained in them, so that they can have a go and see if it works for them. So for me it was about sharing knowledge, not keeping it to myself, so that we can help that next generation and help them go through the things that they're currently facing. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It really has been lovely over the last kind of year, really, to get to know you. And I can honestly say there's a lot of us at SPCK that have been involved in this book are parents. So a lot of us are very desperate to get our hands on it. It's almost there. Because we really do feel that this is an absolutely vital resource, not just for parents, grandparents, teachers, children's workers, but also for young people that are coming through themselves to be able to talk, and have that shared language.
Yeah,
brilliant. So thank you so much for writing it.
You're welcome.
And thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here today.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers.